Can you recall some fights in which fans, journalists, fight analysts, and all logic pointed towards a particular fighter winning? But when you least expected it, the opponent pulled off a victory out of nowhere. No, we are not talking about huge upsets like GSP versus Serra or Cro Cop versus Gonzaga, but rather random fights in which everyone assumed the winner and wrote the opponent off, only to be shocked in disbelief when the unexpected happened. Consider that logic, stats, and MMA math have been proven wrong more than a few times. We will look into the most unexpected wins in UFC history. Israel Adesanya versus Sean Strickland. Nobody can deny that Izzy is a striking virtuoso who went undefeated in MMA for 8 years. When you analyze his fighting style, the best bet against him would be a powerful puncher like Alex Pereira, who always has a nuclear option in his pocket, or a strong wrestler who would neutralize Izzy's craftiness on the feet. Sean Strickland is none of that. When the two were matched for the undisputed UFC belt, all logic pointed towards Adesanya outstriking Sean on the feet to achieve another dominant performance. Strickland does not possess the one-punch knockout power to surprise the African, nor the offensive wrestling to take Israel into deep waters. To add to the unexpected turn of events, Strickland took that fight on short notice. So how could he win against someone like Adesanya? Well, the American shocked everyone with a big right hand in the first round that staggered the champ and proceeded to dominate him throughout the whole fight, earning a victory that nobody expected. Belal Muhammad versus Sean Brady. It's not only about Belal winning, but how he did it. Sean Brady was an undefeated prospect riding a 15-fight winning streak. Belal usually utilized his wrestling to gain an advantage over his opponents, but Brady was as good a wrestler as Belal, if not better. Also, Belal is not renowned for his finishing skills, and most of his bouts are won by decision. While everyone thought that Brady was a terrible matchup for Belal, he did something that left everyone with their mouths wide open. With Khabib in his corner, Belal turned into quite the Alexander Usyk, knocking Brady out on the feet. Who could have expected that Khabib could transform someone with pillow hands like Belal into a potential striker? Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier 2. When Stipe fought DC for the first time, the Olympian pulled off a beautiful knockout that left Stipe hitchhiking through the galaxy. They were set for a rematch on August 17, 2019, and Cormier was getting the better of him, dominating Stipe on the feet and in the wrestling department. As a result, viewers were convincingly picking Daniel to win the rematch on the judges' scorecards. In an unexpected turn of events, Stipe made some crucial adjustments mid-fight and started targeting Cormier's torso, distracting him from keeping his guard up. And just like that, Miocic caught DC with a combination that he could not walk away from. Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor. Yes, McGregor was a rising star and his confidence was skyrocketing. But when he was scheduled to face Jose Aldo, everyone knew that he was facing a different kind of animal this time. The King of Rio was undefeated for 9 years, dominant on the feet and on the ground, and the most well-rounded fighter the Notorious had ever faced. Besides the Irish community and Conor's biggest fans, most people believed that the Brazilian would have another dominant performance and defend his belt for the 8th time. Unfortunately for Aldo and those who bet on him, the whole spectacle lasted for 13 seconds, and it was the King of Rio who was staring up at the ceiling. Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen 1. You don't always have to be a fight fan to know who's winning the bout. When Chael met Silva for the first time, he showed his Brazilian rivalry the beauty of Greco-Roman wrestling, taking him down at will and dominating in every round. For 5 rounds, the American bounced Anderson's head off the canvas like a pinball, making even the commentators assume that Bruce Buffer would announce the new middleweight champion. But hey, while wrestling is a dominant martial art, jiu-jitsu is deadly, like a king cobra's bite. Only seconds away from victory, the American gangster got caught in a tight triangle choke, left with the option to tap or nap. If you thought Chael would win a unanimous decision entering the 5th round, rest assured that you were not alone. Glover Teixeira versus Jan Blachowicz. MMA is a sport for the young, but some fighters defy age and keep shocking fans in disbelief. When Blachowicz faced Teixeira to defend his title, he was nearly 40, but Glover was 42, and there was nothing the Brazilian could offer that Jan hasn't faced before. The Polish fighter, a high-level BJJ black belt, was knocking everyone out and was on a 5-fight winning streak. So, how could a 42-year-old grandpa defeat him and snatch his belt? It turns out the old man had a few tricks left in his pocket and pulled off an upset by strangling the champ in the 2nd round. Randy Couture versus Tim Sylvia. Speaking of defying age, Randy Couture is one of the first fighters that come to mind. Tim Sylvia was a dominant force in the UFC's heavyweight division, having won the belt by defeating Andrei Arlovsky on April 15, 2006. Silva managed to defend his belt twice before he was matched against the 43-year-old Randy Couture on March 3, 2007. It wasn't only about the age discrepancy. Tim was a huge heavyweight with heavy hands, while Randy, at 6 feet 1 inches and 203 pounds, had also fought at light heavyweight. Tim learned that day you should never underestimate an old wrestler with cauliflower ears. Randy dominated the champ throughout the whole fight, outstriking and out-wrestling him to a convincing decision victory. Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren. Jorge Masvidal has always struggled with wrestlers and grapplers in general. That was evident in his fight with Maya, who turned into a human backpack and dominated the American for the whole bout. When he was matched against Ben Askren, the MMA community expected that Askren would utilize his wrestling to dismantle Masvidal by taking him to deep waters and drowning him. Well, things didn't go quite like that. In one of the biggest holy crap moments in UFC history, Jorge went airborne with a knee, sending the Olympian straight into the land of darkness. Some could predict Masvidal catching Ben with a big shot at some point in the fight, but knocking him out in 5 seconds was something that nobody could foresee. Derek Lewis versus Alexander Volkov. When you see someone getting outstruck for 3 rounds with seconds away from the final horn, it's safe to assume the winner, right? Well, not when Derek Lewis fights. The Black Beast hits like a truck, and he can knock out literally every human being on the planet with one shot. In his fight against Alexander Volkov, the Russian was seconds away from winning the bout, and everyone thought that he would earn another unanimous decision victory. But out of nowhere, Luke unleashed a ballistic missile that knocked the giant out, adding another unexpected win to his resume. Chris Weidman versus Anderson Silva 2. When Chris Weidman knocked Anderson Silva out on July 6, 2013, most people thought that it was a fluke. The two were scheduled for a rematch, and it was time for Silva to prove that he was a long-reigning champion for a reason. The Spider was not playing around this time, and considering his dominant reign, it was expected that he would seal the deal legally this time and show Weidman who was the sheriff of this division. Well, who could expect that this bout would witness one of the most gruesome injuries in sports, earning Weidman another victory over the legend? MMA is a crazy sport, and one should always expect the unexpected. Travis Browne versus Alistair Overeem. Alistair Overeem is one of the best, most precise strikers the UFC heavyweight division has ever seen. When he was matched against Travis Browne, it seemed that the American had nothing for Overeem that could surprise him. The Dutchman was a former K1 champion, a superior kickboxer with good takedown defense. So what would someone like Browne do in the octagon against him? It was safe to assume that Overeem would pick Browne apart on the feet and ultimately knock him out. And that's exactly how it looked in the opening minutes. The Reem went on an assault, making the American bloody and wobbling. It looked like Alistair was a few shots away from turning Browne's lights off. Somehow, Travis weathered the storm and returned with fire, catching the foe with a clean front kick to the chin. The subsequent onslaught destroyed any hopes for a comeback. Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman 2. When Leon met Usman for the first time on December 19, 2015, he was no match for the powerful wrestler who imposed his takedowns and grappling prowess. The two were scheduled for a rematch on August 20th, 2022, but it was safe to assume that the script would not differ much this time. Usman was even better than the first time they fought, and he showed that for the first 4 rounds by taking Leon down at will and dominating him in the clinch. But who could have thought that Cro Cop's spirit would have entered Leon's body in the closing minute of the 5th round and shocked the world with a stunning high-kick knockout? Who could expect that after getting destroyed for 5 rounds, Edwards would have a little more left in the gas tank to pull something like that? Well, that's why MMA is arguably the most exciting sport in the world today. Paul Craig versus Magomed Ankalaev, Jamahal Hill, and Nikita Krylov. How can someone like Paul Craig, with limited striking skills and only solid jiu-jitsu, be the one to cause Ankalaev and Hill their first professional losses? The Scottish fighter is not an elite competitor that we would see fighting for the belt anytime soon, but somehow he managed to earn the most unexpected wins in the sport, all by triangle choke. Ankalaev was dominating him for the whole fight and got caught in Paul's triangle seconds away from the final bell, ultimately tapping and losing for the first time. Jamahal Hill was another victim of Paul's triangle, who almost got his hand detached from his body in a fight that only few believed Craig could pull off an upset in. Nikita Krylov was blasting him with shots too, until that infamous triangle arrived, depriving him of oxygen and granting Craig another huge victory in his career. None of these wins were expected, but Paul Craig will always be remembered as a fighter who was never expected to win, but could always find a way to shock the world by pulling off the least expected scenario. What do you think of our selections, fight fans? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, and we can't wait to see you in the next one.